Friends, I'd like to introduce Tom Hoopes, who has been teaching religions at George School for the last 16 years. And Jeff Markovitz, who's from Plymouth Meeting Friends, who is one of the co-founders of the Friends Collaborative. I'll leave it to you guys.
Right. Cool. Good morning, friends. All right. Can you hear me clearly? Awesome. Yeah, Zoom, we're good? Yep. All right. Thumbs up. We're good. All right. Wow, what a joy. I'm looking around seeing a lot of old friends and some new faces that I don't recognize. And I have to say, during worship this morning, I was picking up on the themes, and I cannot imagine a more perfect setup as we continue in the spirit of worship in this conversation that Jeff and I will initiate, thinking about the power of wisdom and love and curiosity and the risk of presumed knowledge and the interconnectedness of spirit. I'm really deeply grateful for this morning's ministry. I want to say that to my way of thinking, we Quakers have a superpower that we often underutilize. And that superpower has to do with the capacity to collaborate with ourselves and with others to actually do something useful in the world. And we've done that really, really well on many occasions, and not so well on some other occasions. And I think friends will recognize some of the times when we've put our shoulder to the plow and invited others to join us, and it's really made a difference in this world. When I think about women's suffrage, a lot of the leading voices, of course, were Quaker women. We can name them. But there were others involved, and that was a whole commitment by our community to really change the world, and it mattered. When we figured out the error of our ways and got behind the evils of enslavement and decided that that was a bad idea and joined Mennonites and others, Quakers had a big impact on the world in changing things. And of course, more recently, the LGBTQ movement has been very much a cause of great importance to friends, and we've aligned ourselves with each other and with other people to really make a difference in the world. Another arena in which that has been the case has been education. I'm looking around the room and seeing a lot of people that I'm connected to through one way or another, through either George School or Plymouth Meeting Friends School, or many of the other schools where your children or you or people connected to you may have gone or may go in the future. Great, that's a lovely community. But it's also true that Friends education is one piece of the way in which Quakers have manifested their energy in the world. I was working at Philadelphia Yearly Meeting as the director of education 20 years ago now, and a program came out to find a way for Pennsylvania tax dollars to be made available to support children in schools, in private schools, including Friends schools. And at the time, I was appalled by this. I thought this is not right at all. And I had a fairly binary idea about education. And I gathered a group with the public education working group at the time, and we invited David Bournes, former head of George School, a great mentor of mine, to come be the keynote speaker. And David, after leaving George School, founded the Paul Cuffey Charter School in Providence, Rhode Island, in a very poor neighborhood. Paul Cuffey was an African-American Quaker from the 17th century who was a sailor. So the school has a maritime theme. So David Bournes was modeling being very committed to Friends education and also being committed to public education, both and. And I've always loved that. He's now on the board of Moses Brown Friends School in Rhode Island. And the idea that Quakers can get together and really change the world through education has been manifest in so many ways, some of which are really quite subtle. You may remember in 2015, or it might have been in 2013, when the President of the United States, Barack Obama, first came out publicly in support of gay marriage. That was the first time he said it out loud. So whether he had changed his mind or not, who knows what was going on inside someone else's mind. But what we do know was that at that moment, his children were enrolled at Sidwell Friends School, where there were quite a few families with 2 moms and 2 dads. And their daughters came home and said, this isn't right that our classmates can't be married to each other and don't get the same legal protections and rights. And it's a really important story to recognize the way in which Friends Education reaches out and touches so many different sectors and really has an impact. Was that part of the reason why that movement got traction at that moment? I'd like to think perhaps yes. One other quick story that I want to share before I invite Jeff to share some really pithy content with you. I was talking with Nancy Starmer when I started working at George School in 2008, and I had just come from Philadelphia Yearly Meeting, and I had that idea about this program, the EITC program in Pennsylvania, and I made some judgment out loud, and she looked right at me. She said, Tom, that may be true, but it is the law of the land. And these resources are available, and families who could not otherwise afford George School can because of this. So it seems to me for us not to take advantage of that does not make sense. And in that moment, I realized I had a real pivot of understanding that Nancy was reminding me that the quest for moral purity and perfection is a dangerous path. And we Friends are, I am at risk for doing it. Perhaps you are as well. And it has been my great honor and privilege to watch the work of Jeff and the Friends Collaborative in realizing that part of what we Quakers have to offer this world is a way of relating to the truth in real time that hopefully has a vision of the world we are trying to help create somewhere out there in the distance. I will share with you, as I tell my students, I wear the most accurate watch in the world. And they're like, yeah, right. Sure. And if you could see my watch from there, those of you who are close, you can see what time it is. The time is now. That is what my watch says. It is true. And occasionally when I'm supposed to be somewhere, I wear another timepiece on the other hand that tells me that it's 11:24. I wear these in recognition of the wisdom of Anthony Benezet, 17th century Quaker who founded Penn Charter and who also was involved in the abolition movement. And he said, Quaker education should be conducted with attention to time and to eternity, both. And so here we are. It's really my joy to introduce my friend and colleague, Jeff Markovitz, who has something to say about an amazing program that he's been involved with. We want to make sure to create time and opportunity for question and discussion afterwards. Jeff.
Thanks, Tom. Morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. It's really a pleasure to see so many people here. I'm really honored by this invitation because I really have no specific expertise of any kind, just, the work that I've been doing. Thanks particularly to Chris for having us here today to talk. As Tom mentioned, I'm a member of Plymouth Monthly Meeting. Thank you for, putting up with an interloper from Abington Quarter. I hope that's okay. I hope everyone's all right with that. But my real hope today is to, I hope this is a conversation with all of you. I hope you'll feel free to, chime in anytime with whatever's on your mind or whatever questions you have. Because I really think it's, that's how we do great things together, is by talking to one another and understanding one another. So I hope no one will be shy about breaking in. The other thing I really hope for today is I hope that by the end of this conversation today, I will have convinced all of you that finding your own way to support Quaker education is something that's worth your time, and it's something worth doing in whatever way that speaks to you, how you can support Quaker education. We saw a great example of that this morning, of these wonderful young children today who were given a microphone and given a voice, and were shown in front of everyone here that what they had to say was important and that it mattered, and that it could make a difference to the people that were listening. And I think that's a real hallmark of Quaker education, and something that Quaker education specifically does really, really well. And I wanted to just start by sharing with all of you why Quaker education is important to me. I started life in public school, and I spent most of my academic career in public school. And when I was in 10th grade, I went to Germantown Friends School and had what was just a mind-blowing experience of how things could be different. When I asked about rules of the school, I was told there were really only two rules. They had really only two rules, like written rules, and one was a dress code that had been recently adopted the year before I got there, which was you had to wear a shirt and you had to wear shoes. Um, and and the other one was you had to go to meeting for worship. Those were really the only two rules, and the rest was a community that was based on uh, Quaker understandings, right? They weren't written down, in the sense of it was in a school rule book somewhere or something, but it was the way that everyone operated with respect with one another. And that was really the start for me. And I would not be here today with all of you if it weren't for the fact that I was lucky enough to experience a Quaker education. So obviously, it's had a huge personal impact upon me in becoming a friend, and in the way that I live my life. But it took on a whole new meaning to me when I sent my children to Plymouth Meeting Friends School, in particular for my youngest child, which, my youngest child, uh, you know, uh, could never have been successful in a public school setting. This is a child, like all children, who is unique, but unique in a way that public school would have been a huge challenge. And my spouse and I have had lots of concerns about the fact that they are present in the world in a different way than what we would call, I'm loath to say it, but normal or average. And the thing that Plymouth Meeting Friends School was able to do for my child and for all children is that they loved my child as they existed, as they were, exactly as they were every single day. And if I project the path not traveled out of what it would have been like for my child to have had the opposite experience, which they would have every day of their life, to be told the exact opposite of being loved every day for who they were, it frightens me to think of what might have happened. And I have seen the power of what Friends Education can do for children, and that's really motivated me to find ways to help. I've been a member of the school committee of Plymouth Meeting Friends School. I've volunteered on all kinds of projects and committees. I'm now back. I've just started again in January as a school committee member of Plymouth Meeting Friends School, and I really value the ability to try and help. And I think that Quaker education, and Tom, you should feel free to jump in on this as well, but I think that Quaker education is one of the ways that we as a society of friends has found a way to bring our values out into the world in a real way. Whether the children who graduate from our schools go on to be friends, they carry with them the values and ideals of friends, and they go out in the world and they go out to make the world a better place. How many of our social workers, teachers, people who work in nonprofits, people who are doing good work in the world to make it a better place, right? How many of our graduates go on to do those sorts of things? So I think Quaker education is fundamentally an engine of good, and that's one of the arguments that I present to all of you today as to why it's really important that we as friends understand the role that Friends Education is playing in the world and the impact it's not just having on the society of friends, which is huge, but also in the world as a whole. Am I missing anything on that particular point, Tom, that you'd like to emphasize?
I agree really strongly. And because I've been at George School now for 16 years and I have a chance to see our current students and who they aspire to be. We have students from 40 countries at George School, and there's an incredible human diversity. And then at the same time, we have this rich history. I don't know if anybody here has enjoyed Beyond Beef products. Raise your hand if you like Beyond Meat. So the CEO of that is a George School alum, which isn't widely known. And I Googled this person, and it says Ethan Brown became a vegetarian in high school. And and I'm sure that the people in the advancement office wish that that said George School and was hyperlinked. And I'm really glad it's not at some level. On the other hand, I wish they, But I looked at that and I thought, yes. And again, this is not an intended advertisement for any position on animal rights or vegetarianism, but simply to say this person went to the school, was impacted, and then went out and as a successful business person, had one of the most successful IPOs of 2022 and makes a product that I enjoy. And every time I buy it, I feel like I'm buying a world that I want to live in. There are so many countless examples, and there are quite a few examples in this room, by the way, of people who've come through French education and done something really impactful in the world. It's real. It's also true that it's incredibly expensive. And so part of what the program that Jeff's going to describe has done has made a Friends education affordable, a life-changing opportunity for people who could not possibly afford it otherwise. So I invite you to learn about the Friends Collaborative.
So thank you, Tom. The Friends Collaborative is really the Pennsylvania scholarship organization that raises money to provide need-based funding for children who can't afford it to attend Quaker schools. Last year, we raised $12 million, and because we're a volunteer-led organization, 100% of those dollars went to need-based scholarships across schools in Pennsylvania. 22 of the 23 Friends schools in Pennsylvania are members, including schools in York Quarter, Buckingham, Newtown, and George. Is there another one in the quarter that I'm missing? United. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, they're all members. Over the years, since we started in 2016, we have raised, after year, we will have raised about $50 million in total. And like I said, all of that money has gone out to need-based scholarship. And that will mean that we've handed out thousands and thousands of scholarships since we've begun. I'd like to mention, I meant to say, there are those here today and online I know who are familiar with the Friends Collaborative as both participants and volunteers, and I would also invite them to share their experiences and understanding and why the program is meaningful to them as well. This is really the most significant funding source that has been created for Friends education in Pennsylvania ever, probably. It's really having an impact, not just on the families who can now afford to send their kids, but it has a huge impact on the schools themselves, especially our smaller Friends schools that are struggling financially. And think about what that means. It's not just in terms of helping families, but in terms of all the dedicated people who work in those schools, all the members of those communities who depend on those schools as an important place in their community. Having a strong ecosystem of Quaker schools is incredibly important, not only because each school can't be its best self without all of the others, but it also plays a role in supporting the Society of Friends at large. Having vibrant schools really helps and makes a big difference. The Friends Collaborative was started by 10 small Friends schools back in 2016. As Tom mentioned, there are several scholarship tax credit programs in the state of Pennsylvania. And one of them, the most well-known one, is the EITC program. It's the Educational Improvement Tax Credit. And what had happened was the 10 small schools had observed that some of the larger schools, like, say, for example, GFS or Penn Charter, were having incredible success getting donations through this program and were funding large dollar amounts of scholarships that way. And a lot of these small schools don't have the resources to be able to engage with a program like this, let alone the normal fundraising they have to do every year. Some of them didn't even have a development person on staff. So their idea was to come together as 10 small schools and to create kind of a big school by working together. And in 2015, my co-clerk, John Gilliland, and I were invited to start attending these meetings that these 10 small schools were having. And what we realized at that time was that they were really onto something. By working together, we could do more together than any one school could do individually. And so in 2016, what we did was we launched our first offering essentially to the wider community that would allow them to make donations under the EITC program. And I'm happy to talk to anyone separately about how it works and the mechanics of it. I don't think that that's what we want to talk about today, although if you really want to, I can bore you with tax policy and how your taxes work and everything like that. But I don't think that's the main thrust of what we're trying to accomplish today. And lo and behold, in our first year, we raised $1 million. And that's really a testament to people who believed in working together, who believed that together we could accomplish something really important, and also the fact that people really do want to support Friends Education, and people really do believe in financial aid. And so from there, over the next couple of years, from the 10 small schools, essentially all the rest of the schools in Pennsylvania joined the Friends Collaborative. And through that collaborative work, we've reached the point where we are today, where we're raising this really significant amount of money. Now I know that many friends have concerns that this program is taking money away from public schools. And please believe me when I say that is just not the case. This money is separately appropriated from the public education budget. And not to mention, it always surprises me when this happens, but the Democrats are actually doing something really smart in Harrisburg. You know, sometimes I'm not sure that we always figure out the best ways to move forward politically. But what the Democrats are doing relative to this program is the Republicans have wanted more money for this program over the years. And what the Democrats have done is they've leveraged the desire by the Republicans to add money to this program by getting more money for public education. So the recent addition of funds to the program this year was in trade for about 9 times as much extra money for public schools. And that's a trade-off I can live with, right? They say that, you know, making the sausage, right? Politics is like making sausage. It's not pretty, and it's not, but that's a trade-off I can live with. If there's $1 going into the tax credit program, which can help Quaker schools, which is really important, and then $9 additional goes to public education, I think that's a trade-off we can all be comfortable with. I think that, you know, I want to flesh out this idea a little bit of how, you know, our work is supporting Friends schools, but also how does that support the Society of Friends? Beyond just the dollars that we're bringing to Friends Education, we've created a platform where Friends educators and administrators and development people are meeting on a regular basis. And what that's done is that's caused them to help one another in other ways that aren't related to this project. They've made connections and colleagues that have been highly beneficial to them. And, you know, to me, it's kind of a funny thing that, you know, they do this in other ways. The teachers in particular are doing this all the time where they're meeting together and being together. But other folks in in these communities aren't meeting as often and aren't working together on projects. And it's created really strong connections that have had huge benefits. It's about this idea that I mentioned about having a strong Quaker ecosystem throughout all the schools. And I think that that's really been a big help. I think the other thing that's really important when it comes to the Society of Friends is one, I just really wanted, we really wanted, the Friends Collaborative really wanted you all to know that we exist. You know, we're perhaps the newest group of friends who are trying to do something in the world, and we are working in your name, right? We're working in the name of all of you, and we thought it was kind of important that you know that we're out there and what we're doing and how you can engage and be helpful. So we thought that was important. The other thing is, and Tom would probably know more about this than I do, but I seem to remember maybe 10 or 15 years ago, there was a survey done by Philadelphia Yearly Meeting. Yeah, do you want to?
So friends may remember the Make New Friends project. Make New Friends was, I think it culminated in 2004. Tom Jevons, when he was general secretary, spearheaded that. And it was found that far and away the largest impactful contributor to people becoming members of the Society of Friends as adults was having participated in a Friends school. So in many ways, the health of Friends education directly has seeded the membership of the Society of Friends and has brought vitality to us. It occurs to me before we move into question and answers, and Zoom folks, please, oh, are they gone? Oh, they just got, okay, all right, let's go. Little show of hands. And so Zoom people participate by putting this in the chat. So please raise your hand if you personally went to any Friends school at all. Okay, and if, and by the way, okay, well, raise your hand now. Keep your hand up if your children and or grandchildren have gone to a Friends school also. Okay, cool. Raise your hand if you went to more than one Friends school. Cool. Raise your hand if your children went to more than one Friends school. Awesome. And in the Zoom chat, I see 4 posts. Okay, so we're not learning where those folks went. Please, once again, if your hand went up for any of those questions, put your hand up again, please, real quickly. Okay, cool. Please turn to your neighbor and identify the school and or schools that you and your neighbor went to. Go ahead, you got 30 seconds, go. All right, friends, time's up. You may not have had time to get all of the schools out. My children went to 5 different Friends schools by virtue of my moving Friends Child Care Center, Newtown Friends School, Green Street Friends School, Plymouth Meeting Friends School, and George School. And weirdly enough, my young adult children, left to their own devices with me not in the room and a microphone on, have been seen publicly to self-identify as Quaker. Weird, I know, it's true though. What I'm trying to say that again? Oh, my Lord, I should not have excluded Friends camps. If we add Friends camps to that mix, raise your hands if your children have gone to, or if you have participated in or been involved with Friends camping. Yeah. Awesome, beautiful. So the point of today's opportunity is to self-affirm and acknowledge, like, wow, this is cool what we're doing, but also to learn about the Friends Collaborative and to get any burning questions that you have answered.
I'm thrilled to hear about Friends Collaborative. I'm a former Quaker teacher. And I would like to, needs-based, is that Quaker kids only or general tuition needs for any kind of family?
What a great question. It is for any family that has a demonstrated financial need. We provide the funds to. Now, one of the things that's really important to understand is that this program, up until this state fiscal year, allowed schools who receive these funds to hold back 20% for any kind of expense they wanted to apply that money to. We at the Friends Collaborative have our own policy that if you accept these funds, 100% of that must go to need-based scholarship for children. You cannot use the 20% holdback for overhead expenses. So we're really clear on what our mission is and what we're trying to do. And I think one of the most amazing representations of how this project is powerful and transcends the ability of any one school to raise funds is that last year, out of the $12 million we raised, $5 million of that were donors who gave the money to apply to any of the 22 friend schools. Most of our donors say, I want my donation recognized on behalf of such and such a school, right? There's still a bit of a identifying with a specific community. But 5 out of the 12 last year was, we want to help kids across the state. We want to support Quaker education writ large. And of that 5 million, half of that came from were dollars that no single friend school ever could have accessed on their own, because that they didn't come from anyone who was really specifically interested in friends education. What they were moved by was the idea that we were trying to help kids across the state, and that it was for need-based aid to help children. And they understood our mission, who we serve. There were a number of things that they were very interested in terms of helping children, not just that had an economic need, but they had kind of a DEI type of focus. And they saw the Friends Schools as a great place to put a very large gift, $2.5 million. So this is one of the things that we can do, is that we can transcend what one single school means or how they can relate to the community. We can provide a broader way to not just help, but to appeal to people who want to help.
Norval, I understand that you've got a question.
Yeah,
you
I,
let me-
well, I have a comment and a question. My comment is, I spent 8 years on the other side of the tracks in state government and as Secretary of Commerce. And I want to commend Jeff and people for doing this. If we had the Quaker Entrepreneur of the Year award, it would go to these guys. It's because they developed the concept of individuals being able to take advantage of the EITC program, which traditionally had been just for corporations. So they broke new ground, and I just applaud them for that. I think people don't realize the impact of this. It's really innovative. My question is, could you just do 2 things briefly? Say how this works for individuals and corporations, and secondly, give us an idea of the total amount of money that has gone to some of our schools of Bucks County last year, because it's certainly significant. Thank you very much.
Norval, thank you. It's really nice to see you. And I also want to thank you because Norval may not want me to say this, but Norval was one of the earliest supporters and volunteers who helped get this effort off the ground. So thank you so much for that, Norval. I'm going to answer Norval, and then I'll go to Mike. And then I saw that there was someone else here who had a question. Yes. So in terms of, I'll answer your second question first, because I'm not sure I remember your first one, so I'll need some help with that in a second. I honestly, I can't, Norval, I can't give you a specific number off the top of my head, but that's certainly information we can report back to the quarter. But last year, no school got less than $250,000 from the Friends Collaborative. So if you think of the 4 schools, it's highly possible that there was well over $1 million that came to the schools in the quarter last year from this program. What was the first question? Does anyone remember? Can anyone? Oh, yes, yes. So the way this program works is, well, to my mind, relatively straightforward, but it may be a little confusing. So I hope you'll bear with me and feel free to ask questions about it. But whether you're a company or you're an individual, let's say you have to pay the state $9,000 in taxes this year. What this does is it really allows you to redirect your tax bill to a scholarship. And the way that works is through a tax credit. And tax credits are different than tax deductions. So what happens is, if you're going to owe the state $9,000, you make a $10,000 contribution to the Friends Collaborative, and then the state is going to give you back $9,000 in a tax credit. So effectively, your out-of-pocket cost on the state level is $1,000 to fund a $10,000 scholarship. Okay, I'm going to say it one more time. $1,000 to fund a $10,000 scholarship. You're going to have to pay your taxes anyway. So this is a unique opportunity where you get to decide to give your tax dollars to something that's meaningful to you. And that's really what this is about, right? Now, Norval worked in state government, so Norval, you'll forgive me, but I'm not always sure that Harrisburg is spending our money with the perfect efficiency that we would all like and on all the things that we really want. But this is an opportunity where you get to decide. And the leverage of this is unbelievable. Every dollar gets 10. When in your life have you had an opportunity to do something that mattered to you and have a multiplier of 10x on top of that? Now, I will just risk taking it one step farther and talking about federal taxes, but for some of us, there's also an additional benefit that you get on the federal level that's independent of what happens on the state level, which makes it even more attractive in terms of the leverage. It brings it up to about 15 to 1. So for every dollar donated, 15 goes to a need-based scholarship. I've been doing it myself since 2016. I would really love it if everyone here would consider it for themselves. If you pay taxes to the state of Pennsylvania, it's certainly worth your consideration. Mike, did you have a question, Mike, or a comment?
It is a tremendous program, and there are a number of organizations similar to Friends Collaborative out there, many of which are religious based and give scholarships. But I can tell you in my research, and I made a significant contribution, certainly last year and a little bit less this year. But in any case, I can tell you the cost of operations for some of these other things takes away sometimes 10, 15% of what the contribution is to operate it. And much to Jeff's credit, the organization of Friends Collaborative in a typical Quaker fashion is all volunteer. So all the money that comes in, essentially, with probably very little exception, goes to scholarships. And that's not always the case with others. The other thing I wanted to ask you, Jeff, was I didn't know quite often if you owe, let's say, $10,000 to the state, they require quarterly payments of those states. Is that also a possibility through the Friends Collaborative that you can set up the quarterly payments through Friends Collaborative, and rather than having to wait at the end of the year for the tax credit?
Thank you for that. That's a great question. Mike, I think it's even better than that because I'm a business owner. And so for me, one of the benefits of this is I don't have to make the quarterly estimated payments, and I don't have to file them. So essentially, I'm getting my tax credits paid back on an ongoing basis, even before I file my taxes. So if you're a business, or you're a 1099, or you're a person who's required to make quarterly estimated payments to the state, there's an additional benefit to you on top of the benefits I've already talked about. That's a great question, Mike. Thank you.
Hi, Alice Maxfield from Wrightstown. I'm also a tax professional, so I really would like to talk to you.
Awesome.
Thank you. But my question is, and how does this all relate to Friends Council on Education and Friends Education Fund? And you began to answer the question that I started out with, which is this just for companies who are paying taxes? And you've begun to answer that, but I hope we have a longer conversation at another time.
Listen, I am so happy for the question, and I am happy to sit and talk with you about taxes for hours on end, but we will not make every other friend here suffer through a conversation that we will enjoy together. Okay. So yes, this is also for individuals. It's for individuals and for businesses. It's for anyone who pays taxes in Pennsylvania. You don't have to live in Pennsylvania. If you owe the state money, this program will work for you in most cases. And what was your other question? I feel like I missed one. Oh, yes, Friends Council. So Friends Council actually is one of our most important partners in this project. Friends Council is, uh, I guess legally speaking, would be our fiscal sponsor. The Friends Collaborative itself, and by the way, I don't know how I missed this. This is one of the things I love most about this. The Friends Collaborative doesn't, in any legal sense, exist. We're not a 501c3. We have no legal structure. We have no contracts amongst our member schools or anything like that. We all got together at our board meeting in May and sat down and agreed how we were going to divide up $12 million. Okay, so if you want to talk about the power of working together as friends, I'm flabbergasted by that every year we do this. And just to be clear, our revenue sharing is not based on what you say Buckingham Friends School raises. You don't just get necessarily what you raise. It's not like you eat what you kill, right? We have a progressive revenue sharing model that lifts up the schools that have the least resources to raise money, and they get more than what they bring to the table. Sometimes they get as much as 800% of what they bring to the table. And our great fundraisers, they're willing to give up what they're raising in support of this Quaker ecosystem that I've been talking to you. So if I can't think of a better representation of how friends can do things together in a powerful way. And it's such a great demonstration, because think about how much money is on the line, right? People get weird around money. Let's be honest about it. People get parochial. People get self-interested around money. And the fact that we can do this because we all believe in the same purpose, because we are all grounded in the testimonies of friends, I think is astonishing to me. Now, I'm a business person and I think about numbers in business, so maybe this example isn't as impactful to you as it is to me, but it's amazing. No other organization would do it like this. So, yeah. And in terms of, go ahead if you want to say about the Friends. Yeah. So Friends Council and Drew Smith have been wonderful partners in this. They've been from the beginning. We work very closely with them, and they're extremely supportive. In terms of the scholarship funds for children of Quakers, that continues as it always has, and is operated by Friends Council, and that hasn't been impacted. But I think they're wonderfully complementary to one another.
Friends, we're close to the end of our allowed time. I wonder if there's one more question.
Hi, Hudson Taylor here from Solberry. My question might be another one of those like another time questions, but I run a nonprofit at the intersection of LGBTQ inclusion in sports, and it's a space that is mission aligned but resource constrained, right? So there's other folks in the space who, we have clarity of mission, we all rowing the boat in the same direction, but when there's limited resources, people fight, people compete. And so the idea of a collaborative for folks who are mission aligned and resource constrained is very appealing to me. You started to speak to a little bit, but that kind of who decides and how do you distribute those funds in a way that feels good for everybody and feels right, feels like a big challenge, but a really big opportunity. So any more you might want to say on the that kind of like collaborative, progressive decision-making process?
First, let me say, if your organization is serving kids and has some, or serving public school kids in particular, some of these funds may be available to you as well, and I'd be more than happy to help with that. So these funds don't just help kids get scholarships to attend independent schools, but it also helps other organizations that provide opportunities for public school kids. Like, for example, let's say the Franklin Institute runs educational programs for public school kids, or our Street Meeting House runs educational, and those organizations can avail themselves of these funds as well. So that's certainly something I'd be happy to talk with you about and help if I can. I mean, look, you all know as much about how we're making our decisions as I do, right? I mean, look, this is the legacy of Friends decision making. We were really lucky that someone else had already figured a lot of that out about how we make decisions as friends. And, you know, I think that that's part of the work that we do every day of reminding ourselves about how we make decisions together, and how we're all actually aligned at the end of the day with the same purpose. If you were to, you know, I mean, hey, this could be a lot of fun for you, or maybe not, but maybe after this, you go get on your computer or your phone and you look up the mission statements of 4 or 5 different Friends schools. You're going to find that they're so aligned. They have the same mission. And so if we remind ourselves of that every day, that we're all working towards the same purpose, we're all working towards helping as many children as possible, it makes that decision making a lot easier. Personalities get in the way, right? Sometimes, listen, I'll let you in a little secret. Sometimes people do annoy me, you know, when I'm trying to do, I mean, not very often, but it does happen. But then I remember I'm not doing this because of this person or that person or another person. I'm doing this to serve the mission. I'm doing this to serve the children that are really what it's about for me, helping as many kids as possible. That's why I do it. I was lucky enough to be able to send, and am still sending in the case of 2, I have 1 graduate, my kids to Friends schools. How can I sit on the sidelines and not do something to help others do the same if that's what they want? So I think that really is the answer to the question, is mission alignment, focus on purpose, and in our case, Quaker decision making.
So Jeff and I will both be here for lunch and happy to connect with friends. Jeff certainly has more content, it's knowledge than I do. But I do want to close by saying that I definitely was skeptical of this when I first heard about it. So if you're sitting here going, yeah, this sounds too good to be true, awesome. Lean into that. We as friends have gotten it wrong on a number of occasions in history. If you're not aware of that, I'll be happy to educate you about that. And so it's very humbling for me to be like, oh yeah, actually this is good. This is real. This is on balance. I appreciate Norval talking about having been in state government for 8 years. You know, making sausage is another name for getting through life. And what Jeff and company have done here is created something that is really a public good in the name of Friends. And so thank you so much for your time this morning, and we'll be happy to connect with you over lunch if you are so let.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.